الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدث بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة أما بعد. In our khutbah today, inshallah, that we'll try to remind ourselves of those things that we should look forward, that we're expecting in the month of Ramadan, by way of preparing ourselves regarding those things to expect in the month of Ramadan, and those things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have given to us regarding this month of Ramadan. So of those things regarding this month of Ramadan that the Muslim he looks forward to, by way of one thing to looking forward to those things, by way of being a part of it. So we're discussing these things as a form of reminder to ourselves that when Ramadan does arrive, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, that we're able to fulfill as much of these things as possible. So of those things regarding, as we know, the month of Ramadan, it has various fadahil, it has various virtues and qasa'is and things that are particular to the month of Ramadan. So during this month of Ramadan, we're able to carry out and to experience some of these things that are particular to the month of Ramadan. So regarding Ramadan and of those things that are particular to Ramadan, as here Islam I mentioned, the Prophet ﷺ are told in the hadith, Bunya Islam ala khams. So Ramadan, as then he mentioned, Bunya Islam ala khams, Shahada in la ilaha illallah, wa anni Rasulullah. Then he mentioned, Wasum wa Som Ramadan. Then of those things that he mentioned is regarding Som Ramadan, fast in the month of Ramadan. So of those things that are of the pillars of Islam, that there are 5, and the 4th of these pillars is Som Ramadan. So fasting Ramadan, it is something which is of the arkan of Islam, and of those things that are expected from the Muslim that they should fulfill the fast of Ramadan when this month arrives. So fasting of Ramadan is of those things that is wajib, and only and this wajib, this fast which is wajib, it occurs in the month of Ramadan. And also, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned to us regarding the virtue of this month of Ramadan, that mentioned Shahr Ramadan alladhi unzila fihi al-Quran, that this month of Ramadan the Quran was revealed. So of those things that are particular to the Quran, particular to Ramadan, is that the Quran, the revelation of the Quran, it started in the month of Ramadan and it continued for over 20 odd years for the completion of the Quran. So this is the month that the Muslim, in the month of Ramadan, that we give time to the Quran. So the Prophet ﷺ, as we'll discuss, that he will give special attention to the Quran in the month of Ramadan. Not to say that we are to ignore the Quran in other remaining months. That's not the case. But whatever we were involved in regarding our relationship with the Quran, by way of reciting the Quran as often as possible, by way of memorizing the Quran, and also tadabbur, and also the person trying to understand the Quran, in this month of Ramadan, we increase in this. So the month of Ramadan is the month of the Quran, where emphasis is to be given to the Quran in a manner befitting to the Quran. And also regarding this matter, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also states regarding this month of Ramadan, and of those things that are particular to it, he mentioned to us by stating, فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْ, that the one who's witnessed to this month of Ramadan. So when the month of Ramadan does start, anyone who's a Muslim, aqil, and is of sound mind, baligh, is above the age of puberty, muqim is residential, not a traveler, tahir is pure, not in a state not in a state of impurity. Then he mentioned, so wa mustati', and the person has the ability, is not very ill or sick or of that type. The person who witnessed the month of Ramadan, that the person must fast the month of Ramadan. So as Muslim, if this month when this month of Ramadan arrive, then each Muslim who fulfill these criteria, then he must fast the month of Ramadan, unless he has a valid excuse. So the Muslim should not be complacent regarding fasting Ramadan, but rather that we should see this as a fulfillment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's command. And that we're doing it, seeking the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala regarding showing our commitment to the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so also of those things that are particular to the month of Ramadan compared to other months of the year. The Prophet alayhi salam have told us in the hadith, فقال من صام رمضان إيمانا واحتسابا غفر له ما تقدم من ذنب ومن قام ليلة القدر إيمانا واحتسابا. So he alayhi salam, he outlined to us, as this hadith in Bukhari and Muslim, that clarify of those qualities of Ramadan that are not found in other months. Man sama Ramadan, that the one who fasts the month of Ramadan, imanan, out of belief, that this is of those things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have commanded and instructed us to fulfill. Wa ihtisaban, and he's seeking the reward. So the person intent is that he's doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but also seeking the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala regarding carrying out this act of siyam. It mentioned of the reward the person receives, that is past sins will be forgiven. So the one who fasts Ramadan with this approach is doing it ihtisaban wal imanan, then the person will receive the reward as mentioned, where his past, his previous sins will be forgiven. And also as Islam mentioned the hadith, وَمَنْ قَامَ لَيْلَةَ الْقَدْرِ. So Laylatul Qadr خَيْرٌ مِنْ أَلْفِ شَهْرٍ is a day, a night that it is better than that of 1,000 months. And this is a person who stand in that night regarding Laylatul Qadr, the last portion of the month of Ramadan, seeking the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and doing it as an act of obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Again, the person who does coincide with this month, with this night of Laylatul Qadr, also his previous sins will be forgiven. And also this night, Laylatul Qadr, it is better than that of 1,000 months. So the Muslim, he look forward to the month of Ramadan because of these things that are attached to Ramadan regarding a way to increase our iman, and also for us to get closer to Ar-Rahman and also showing our commitment to Islam. Also, Annahu rahimahullah, when he mentioned this hadith called Al-Murad bi-Qiyam Ramadan as-Salatu Tarawih. So what is meant regarding Qiyam Ramadan is Salatu Tarawih. So the Muslim, this is an additional salah that is prayed in the month of Ramadan, but then after Salatul al-Isha, where the person and the person try to attend those masajid, and the masajid are the best place to pray is salat. If the person is unable, then a place that he and others can gather. But after first, the primary place regarding a salat, a tarawih, and also the compulsory salawat in general, the person pray them in the masjid. But if not, then the person pray them according to one's ability and situation. So Anna Rahimullah, I mentioned that is Salatul Tarawih, that is the established salat that is done inside the masjid. And is, as he mentioned, Ajmal Muslimun ala sunniyat Qiyam al-Layl. That is something which is sunnah, but something which is highly recommended at the Muslim, that he tries to be a part of it. One, that the person is able to hear the entire Quran, to listen to the Quran. So this is of the benefit regarding of this matter. So and also that the Muslim, that he stand side by side with his brothers in Islam. Also of those events, of those things that are particular to Ramadan, and also to, as Islam mentioned to us in the hadith, فقال عليه السلام, the hadith in the Muslim, الصلوات الخمس والجمعة إلى جمعة ورمضان إلى رمضان مكفرات ما بينهن. That Islam, he told us in this hadith regarding الصلوات الخمس والجمعة إلى جمعة, from one salat to the next, from one Jummah to the next, from one Ramadan to another Ramadan. What is the consequence? What will the person gain? Mukaffirat ma baynahun, that they will expiate the person's sins. Ma ishtunab al-kabair, if the person avoid major sin. So these minor sin that we all fall into. So sins that is common, that we normally will fall into regarding minor sins, these things are removed, these things are expiated. We are forgiven even without tawbah, even without making tawbah for these minor sins, that they are expiated by us thus carrying out these acts. From one salat to another, yani compulsory salat, from one Jummah, attending one Jummah to another, the sins, the minor sins between those that week, that they are expiated. Also from one Jummah, from one Ramadan to another one Ramadan, then the same thing occurred. So it shows that the Muslim, that regarding these things, these acts that I mentioned, as-salat al-khams, or salawat al-khams, wal Jummah ila Jummah, wal Ramadan ila Ramadan, not to be complacent regarding fulfilling these acts. That we put all our efforts and strive in fulfilling our compulsory salawat, also attending Salatul Jummah, and also the Muslim fast in the month of Ramadan. Why? Our sins are expiated. So these are things that the Muslim he receive from carrying out these acts that are mentioned. Alhamdulillah, الذي بعث رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على دين الكل وكفى بالله شهيدا وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So also regarding those matters that are of the fadail of Ramadan as a form of encouragement for a Muslim regarding trying to be a part of all the benefits that comes with Ramadan. So of those benefits, of those virtues of Ramadan, as alayhi salatu was in a hadith in Bukhari and Muslim, min hadith Ibn Abbas, رضي الله عنهما قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فإن العمرة فيه يعني رمضان تعدل حج. That alayhi salam, he told us regarding of those benefits that comes along in the month of Ramadan. That as alayhi salam mentioned, that the person who performs Umrah, so the one who performs Umrah, this act in Ramadan, that it will be elevated to that of Hajj. So meaning the person who performs Umrah in the month of Ramadan, that he gains the reward of that of Al-Hajj. So it shows regarding the virtue of this month and performing certain acts in this month of Ramadan, that they elevated, their reward are increased because of the virtue of this month. So the Muslim who is able to perform Al-Umrah in the month of Ramadan, then a person tried to make use of this opportunity in performing of Umrah, based upon he will be rewarded by that of Hajj for Hajj, regarding he will be rewarded as if he has performed Al-Hajj. Also of those things regarding how we function in general in the month of Ramadan, that and the hadith of the Prophet of Ibn Abbas رضي الله عنهما قال كان النبي عليه السلام أجود الناس. That the Prophet Ibn Abbas رضي الله عنه, that is explaining, clarifying his observation of this person, the Prophet ﷺ, how he functioned, how he behaved, how he was normally. قال أجود الناس. That the Prophet ﷺ was the best amongst the people regarding his character, regarding how he dealt and how he behaved and functioned with others. So أجود الناس, he was the kindest, the most generous, the most considerate amongst the people. Then he mentioned بالخير, regarding things of goodness. Then he continued by stating وكان أجود ما يكون في رمضان. And that the Prophet ﷺ, that in Ramadan even more, even in Ramadan, he even add to this أجود ما يكون في رمضان, that even more effort was put in the month of Ramadan. So a normal situation is the best amongst the people, the Prophet ﷺ. But also in Ramadan, even more effort, he would increase his jud, his level of generosity, his kindness towards the people in the month of Ramadan. So this is something that the Muslim, that he should try to look at this and to mirror this character. That we try to display good conduct all the time, but in Ramadan we try to even increase in this. So on in matters regarding our generosity in the month of Ramadan, we try to be more giving. Especially we find what we have seen, and it's the Muslim, that they're going through in different Muslim country, going through different trials. Those who need our assistance, whether international or local, that we try to assist them. Also the Muslim in the month of Ramadan, regarding of the thing that we have to cope with, and try to look at it in the best way possible, that we have more people attending the masjid, so we have to be more considerate towards others, that things may occur, whether from ourselves or from others, that was not intentionally done against us or meant against us. So because of the large crowd in the masjid, that at times a person may do something ill-intended, for us not to take it beyond this and give an excuse to our brothers and to our sisters. And also that we have to be more considerate regarding the masjid use and also how we use the masajid. So this month of Ramadan, that we use the masjid often, more often, but we have to be considerate, mindful regarding that the masjid, whether in Ramadan or outside Ramadan, is the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it has rules, regulation, guidelines regarding how it is to be used. It's not a free-for-all situation. So even Ramadan and most of Ramadan, for us to observe those rules regarding the adab of the masjid, of not shouting unnecessarily in the masjid, quarreling with others in the masjid, and at times also bringing our children to the masjid to run wild while others are praying and they're not being looked after or supervised, then this is being inconsiderate. And this is a form of dhulm upon others. So the Muslim in Ramadan, as mentioned, كان عليه السلام أجود الناس بالخير وكان أجود ما يكون في رمضان. Then also he mentioned in the hadith regarding this matter, حين يلقاه جبريل عليه السلام, that Jibreel will meet the Prophet عليه السلام وكان يدرسه القرآن. And also of those things that the Prophet عليه السلام will give emphasis regarding the Quran in the month of Ramadan. So Jibreel alayhi salam, the angel, will come and meet him and they'll go over the Quran. So putting more emphasis on the Quran, in reciting the Quran in the month of Ramadan, trying to make it a part of our aim, objective of the month of Ramadan, that we try to complete the recital of the Quran at least once. To complete the recital of the Quran at least once. And to try to listen, if we're also to the Quran completely at least once. So we have objectives regarding Ramadan, and as Islam, so that's of those things regarding Ramadan, Islam of those things Ramadan, that you perform itikaf. So he'll try to remove himself from the dunya. And what comes with the dunya. So the Muslim on the day-to-day basis, we're in the hustle and the bustle of the dunya. So at times we need to remove ourselves from this hustle and bustle and all of this going back and forth in the dunya, and that we try to just give our attention to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also to said, to bring back ourselves back to who we're supposed to be. So itikaf is an act of ibadah, where a person spends most of his time in the masjid, or all his time in the masjid, reading Quran, making salah, making of dhikr, less of kalam, less involvement in the dunya. This is itikaf. So Islam, as mentioned by Aisha radhiyallahu anha, or Abu Hurairah, Aisha radhiyallahu anha, قال كان يعني النبي السلام يعتكف 10 أواخر من رمضان, that Islam would make itikaf in the last 10 nights of Ramadan. So the Prophet Islam was consistent in this as a form of to remove himself from the dunya and give attention in trying to purify himself by reading the Quran, making of dhikr, removing himself from the asl and the bustle of life. So this is something also that we should cultivate in ourselves. So Ramadan is that month that we should try to, again, purify ourselves, not to enter Ramadan as we were last year or the month before, and no changes that we can see in our own personal lives. Islam was in a hadith where he said in the hadith, where he mentioned in the hadith, in this matter, the meaning of the hadith, that Jibreel alayhi salam came to the Prophet alayhi salam and he was going upon the mimbar, فقال آمين. Then he stepped up another step and called Ameen. Then also he did it for the third time. So the companions who were present, that they heard the Prophet alayhi salam saying Ameen, Ameen over and over. So they wanted to inquire as to what's the reason for this. فقال عليه السلام, as they said, he called, إن جبريل عليه السلام أرد لي فقال, that Jibreel, that he had put to me certain things. Then after those things, فقال بعدا لمن أدرك رمضان ولم يغفر له. بعدا من أدرك أو لمن أدرك رمضان ولم يغفر له. That distant, that person to be put away. The one who met the month of Ramadan and was not forgiven. So the Muslim, of the things that we want to end Ramadan and of the intention in starting Ramadan and our goals of Ramadan is that we're forgiven. And none of those individuals who we went through the rituals of Ramadan and we were not forgiven. We had there were no changes in our life, no improvements. So here Islam kind of somewhat admonishing those people who the month of Ramadan came and, as they say, just went by. It came and just went by. Man adrak Ramadan walam yaghfir lahu. The one who met Ramadan and did not receive forgiveness. Showing we wasted that Ramadan. So these are those things that relates to what is ahead of us regarding the month of Ramadan. So it's for us to put a system in place to reflect regarding how can I be of those who benefit from of those things that come with Ramadan and not be of those who, as mentioned, man adraka Ramadan walam yaghfir lahu. The one who met Ramadan and was not forgiven. فالله المستعان والآخر دعوانا الحمد لله آمين وأقيموا الصلاة.